Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to part 60 of the emergency storage shed clean out series. It's right behind me. In the last episode, which was just the other day, we had a look at this unidentified hammer. Couldn't really work out what it was. I've had a few great comments. No one's really identified it other than to say it could be a rigger's or a scaffolder's hammer, in that the spike one end is like a podger bar for lining up holes. But I don't know, it's an interesting piece. Someone wants to buy it. Someone in the comments said, I forget who it was, Robert, I think, said, I'd like to buy it, so I'll get in touch with you. I'm happy to sell items from these videos, and I do have a lot of local people here that watch them, and they pop in the shop the first day we're open, and quite often I sell things. Very happy to do that, although that's not the major purpose of my videos. Let's get something out of this shed. We need to achieve something for this week. And I'd like to get another one organised later this week for next week, because I've got a lot going on at the moment. So we continue to make progress. We can see the empty space we created in the last episode. Let's get this. It's a Drench drum or something that's obviously been cut down to a storage drawer. And I find a lot of these in farmers' sheds. And it's a great way of repurposing the old drums. Now this one, I think I'm going to have all my wits about me here, because I think there's a lot of weird stuff in here. I'm not sure how I'm going to go identifying it. I know this was a sort of a scoop and throw receptacle when I was cleaning out my old shed behind my old shop, which I had to do in a hurry. And there was a lot of random stuff I think went into this one. So let's get it onto the bench and have a look what's in here. So I'm managing to keep going, getting something out of this shed every week. If you're new to the channel, this series, well, part 60 is a long-running series. It will make triple figures easily. We're committed to getting something out of that shed every week, otherwise we're never going to get it empty. It all got moved here in a hurry when I had to move from my old shop, and I wasn't the only one who was packing it, so things got mixed up, and some boxes I've never ever opened or been into before, so it's total mystery. I clean out people's sheds and houses for a living, have done for 20 years, and a lot of stuff just got moved quickly. So you're following me on the journey. I hope you continue to follow me if you're new here. We've always got surprises. We always get really good value, and I'm showing you how to deal with stuff, or at least how I deal with stuff. We have some random tools. We have a real mixture in here. So let's get a closer look. So there's definitely some tools in here, but there's a lot of random stuff. A rusty old tin countersunk screws, 40mm. I wonder if that's accurate. Looks like an old film canister, this one. Probably nails or screws. Maybe the label is correct. Oh yeah, fairly modern countersunk screws. Probably around about 40mm. So that's fine. We'll put them in a jar. We do sell a lot of hardware through the shop. An automotive, probably a Globe. Hella made a lot of electrical lights and associated electrical automotive stuff. And that's it's a flasher unit for the indicators, I would suggest. Brand new. Probably not suitable for modern day cars, but there's certainly plenty of people doing up old cars that we should be able to sell that. Flasher unit, it even says it on the side. We have some old Kodak film or slide containers here, and that one looks like it's got soldering iron parts, bit of a mixture. There's a nice little threading tap, so I'll keep all those until I get a few sets, and I'll sell any excess. Most of that looks like soldering iron things. We've got some large copper tips, some smaller tips, some of the little carbon elements. So these are out of possibly a scope soldering iron. I have cleaned out a few sheds over the years of guys that were into electronics. Oh, there's a scope soldering iron. That's a mini scope. They're a very good soldering iron. Probably, the wires have just been cut off, that one. They're probably not the choice of electronics enthusiasts these days, but they were the bee's knees in their time. We have a lot of plugs and sockets. Some of these I will, I don't think, some of the old Bakelite ones I can sell, and I certainly mentioned that to you many times. We'll get $5 for that. It's a ring grip, Australian made Bakelite plug. So we'll sort out, there's some more soldering iron parts. So we might sell a group of parts. I think that's just an electrical probe, probably off a test meter. What's in this other slide box. Ooh, chain links, Flo's watch. 3, interesting. Oh, that's those. This is some sort of necklace. I like finding jewellery. So these are just bits and pieces, obviously been in someone's shed. Probably the wife said, "Dear hubby, can you fix my jewellery?" And it ended up in a little box in his shed until he passed away, and we found it. So it's worth checking out properly. It's lots of bits and pieces, but we certainly can find some real gold in amongst this sort of stuff. And I'll show you how I check that. We'll do that towards the end of this video. Chain links for a watch. So it's unlikely they're going to be gold, but you never know. So we'll check that out. Nice. I always like finding bits of jewellery. Here we have a Bakelite junction box. Doesn't look as though it's been used. Now a lamp switch. In pretty good condition. The switch feels good. And you guys know I use these. I often repair lamps. So that'll go into my box of lamp switches. A socket. Another socket. Another nice Bakelite plug. So we'll certainly save those up. What brand was that one? That's Ring Grip again. A more modern socket from an extension cord. Clipsal was another, I think they're an Australian brand. Double adapter. I don't tend to sell these ones. Any of the older ones, like plugs or double adapters, if they haven't got that protective half sleeve on the pins, which is a requirement these days, I don't sell them. I'll save any wire I get. I do pull the double adapters apart. We'll do that, and I'll show you the brass that I get out of those. They're very easy to get into. I don't worry about the pins off the plugs. I know a lot of people do, but I'm not going to worry about that. Plugs that are rewirable, that one hasn't got an earth pin. I won't bother reselling them again if they haven't got that insulation sleeve on the pin. If they are more modern, I certainly can sell them. I usually get $2 each for them. So I don't think there's a lot to sell in here. There's a nice Bakelite switch. Well, again, we get $5 for those. More modern little light fittings. Another Bakelite one here. That's Elmaco, or Elmaco. Another made in Australia brand. The Bakelite plugs are really popular for the guys that restore old radios and vintage electrical equipment, because they like to get original Bakelite plugs. And there's another one, but that's damaged, and that's only, I think, a 12-volt configuration. So given that's damaged, we might just, the pins will come out of that pretty easily. But I don't usually worry about these unless they come out really easily. On the Bakelite stuff, you can just hit them with a hammer and they smash. But I'm not going to make plug soup, as some of the scrappers do, just to save a little bit of brass. So a lot of this will probably just go into the e-waste container to go to the transfer station. I may keep that one, because sometimes I'm looking for the older style ones to suit various appliances. But most of these... Alright, we'll just go into the e-waste bucket. So let's quickly sort them. All the modern stuff can go straight into here. I'll save a little bit of wire. And I don't think there's going to be much in that one. We might just undo the cover. There might be a big chunk of brass, you never know. And I don't think we really want these sockets either. And there's a bit of wire on this light fitting we might as well save for now. So we have our soldering iron bits. Let's pull this cover on here now. Given that it's only a couple of really easy screws, we'll have a look in here. Just in case there's a big brass junction strip, connector strip. We'll keep the screws. And there is a connector strip, but it's not overly large. How hard is it to get out? If we take one side screw out, does it slide? Yes, it does. All right, we may as well get that. That's a bit of a chunk of brass there. So we'll take those ones out. The screws themselves, though, may not be brass. Quite often on these connector blocks, the screws are actually just brass plated. And of course, we can pick that with a magnet. No, they are definitely brass screws. Okay, and they can go back in with our electrical stuff. I'm not going to worry about saving the screws. That can just all go in. Well, the ones we've already got out can go in the brass screw jar. The other ones can go straight in the brass bin. And let's do the double adapter. They are very quick to get apart, these. And there's a reasonable amount of brass in it. Certainly better than just the pins. One screw. We'll save the screw. And all the brass pieces really just push out. Sometimes you need to give them a bit of a hit, but that's all right. So there we go. Very quick and easy to get a decent amount of brass out of those things. And I'll put that back in with the electrical stuff. And this little one we were looking at, I don't think it's really worth pulling apart, but what the hell, I've got the screwdriver with me now. Let's see if the terminals come straight off really easily. And no, they're moulded into the Bakelite, so they can just stay with the electrical bits. So we have two nice plugs, $5 each there. A switch for $5, I've got $15 there. Some soldering iron parts and a few bits of scrap. Okay, we had three plugs. One was hiding, as you guys probably saw, but I didn't. So $20 there, plus a few other bits we'll go through later. Let's get into this tub. We have some tools. We have some cast aluminium, but they look like project boxes. And I'm not even sure what's down the bottom. Real mixed bag, this one. So I'll put the camera back in the tripod and we'll unpack this. Okay, I've moved you up higher so you can see as we're bringing things out. I think this was some of the stuff I was just using regularly at my old shed behind the shop. I think this was mostly off where I was doing a lot of scrapping. They've obviously been in the weather. I don't know about the rasp. I vaguely remember actually rasping down a couple of handles to fit into new axes or shovels or something. So I reckon this stuff was out, yeah, the Stilsons I would have had when I was undoing plumbing fittings. So these are part of my old toolkit that have been well used and left in the weather for a long time. They've probably turned up over the years and I've just thought, oh, that'll be handy, I'll need one of those. That looks like a 14mm spanner, but they're not going to be of much value. And I always used a whole heap of punches for knocking things apart, and most scrappers will know you have a box full of random punches. They get quite bent and flared at the end, and look, that one's mushroomed out one end, it's bent at the front, and eventually they just go straight in the scrap bins themselves. I pretty well have an unending supply of these sort of things anyway, so once they get a bit butchered, straight in the scrap. That's a nice one with a really long shaft, but it's been bent a bit. I think I used to use this to knock out valve guides out of aluminium engine heads. I don't sort of do that much detailed scrapping anymore. I don't have time. So I think the rusty spanners we'll just put straight in the $1 box at the shop. These Stilsons I'll probably hang up here. They'll still be handy on my outside vise, so it doesn't matter if they're in the weather. Another very rusty spanner. I do have a box of files and rasps at the shop for just $1 each. Still quite usable, and if you ever go and buy a new file, you know they're very expensive, so they sell okay. That's a really good heavy steel punch. Well, it's obviously a pivot pin or something, but it makes a great punch. It's a good solid one. It's not bent or anything. And that's a tapered punch, which are really good for starting off pins without bending the end of them. When you have a straight punch, I don't have one here, or even like this, when it's a straight shaft punch, it tends to bend very easily when you're hammering it. That's probably not a good example because it's so long, but the tapered ones really give a good punch without bending the end of the punch. I'll keep those two. The rest of the punches can go in the scrap. The spanners can go in the $1 box at the shop. The file can as well. There's another very good punch. So I will keep a few of these for when I'm scrapping. And again, that doesn't matter if they stay out in the weather and get a bit rusty. I remember using that one as a punch. I'm not sure what it originally was, just a piece of square section tapered down, but again, it makes a great punch. Oh, another electrical thing that can just go in our tub over there. A screwdriver. I don't think it's a particularly good brand, and it's a bit rusty. Again, a box of tools at the shop for $1 a pick. So I'll keep those ones. Now, we have some wiring. Got a couple of alligator clips. It may have been off a battery charger or something. I'll just salvage the wire for the scrap insulated wire bin. And the clips themselves aren't very good. They can just go into the pressing steel. Although this one's a bit better, the bigger one. Yeah, that looks okay. So they can just go in the dollar box at the shop as well. Now, these aluminium pieces, it does look like a project box of some sort, or it was used for something. The lid fits quite well. I think I probably should hang on to that if I need to make a control panel for something. I do have a lot of project ideas in mind for various things around the shed. I could always resell this later. It's too good to put in the scrap aluminium box. It's only probably a couple of 100 grams. So we're only talking, 20 or 30 cents maybe. I think I could get $5 for it as a project box. It has a screw-on lid. They're threaded in the posts. It'll be easy to find countersunk screws to fit it. So I'll hang on to that one for now. But I would value that at least $5 anyway. And there's a couple of other little ones too, and they're complete and even got the screws in them. So I will hang on to those as project boxes for now. And the rest of this is a real jumble. Lots of various spanners. I think some of these are from my original set. And I'm just going to very quickly scan them to make sure there's no particularly good brands or anything special. And I think they can all go in the $1 box at the shop. There's a pin punch I was talking about before. And you can see it's such a fine pin. It's for obviously punching out small things, but they bend so easily when you hit them with the hammer. You're much better off to start something moving with a tapered punch and then use a pin punch once it is moving just to tap it through. So they can be straightened, of course. So that one's not bad on the end. It's just, I might straighten that one up and put it in my box of punches for now. Wow, the rest of this box is just a real mixture of all sorts of things. Looks like there was a margarine container full of bits and they're just now spreading through the bottom. There's a piston ring compressor, very rusty. I saved a good one of those out of a box a little while back. I don't think I need to restore this one. I'm not sure. I'll have a think about that one. A little tin here. What's in the tin? It's a first aid dressings, like a band-aid tin. And it's probably got rivets or something. Yes. Oh, they're actually not rivets. They're little nails with a great big head on them. And that's just a little piece of leather. Yeah. They would probably have a use. I've got a lot of little jars I've been finding lately, and I thought I might use them to keep all these little specialised nails in them just for the odd times that I need one. They're pretty old, and I could see them having a use in certain projects. We might save those ones. Another caster. I had a box of those the other day. A random, that's a level. I think that was off some scales I scrapped a long time ago. One of the feet had this little bubble level so that you got the scales perfectly level. And I kept it thinking it might be handy one day. Well, will it be? I don't know. It's too good for scrap. I think I'll put it in a $1 box at the shop just with random shed stuff. Someone will certainly have a use for it. It's not much point me saving that here. I think it'll stay here forever. Alright, we have some plumbing fittings. That's just a poly one, not brass, unfortunately. Bit of electrical tape. Some better spanners in the bottom. That's a Sidchrome 18mm spanner. It's a bit rusty on that side. It's worth cleaning up though. This is an oil filter wrench, but very rusty. I'm not even going to try and clean that. That can just go in the scrap steel here. Some aviation former gasket. This was good stuff. It was like a brown tarry type substance, and I used to use it when I was rebuilding engines. And it's probably still okay, you know. It had a brush on the end of the lid. Yep. Oh look, that's as good as the day it was made. It's like a tar, but it does a really good job at sealing gaskets. So that's still perfectly fine. Oh, I remember that smell. This is probably 30 years since I used something like this. It's a non-hardening sealant. Form a gasket. Yeah. All right, well, I'll keep that one. A box of matches. I don't think they're any good. That looks like a plumb bob. Possibly a homemade project. I'll put that in the dollar bucket at the shop too. Lots of random screwdrivers, a little coal chisel, some better spanners. So I will clean up some of the nicer spanners. Kingcraft, yeah. Some of these are out of my original toolkit, and some of it's not going to be much good. That's a little punch. It's been ground down into a center punch. A little grindstone that goes in a drill. That wasn't mine. I don't know where that's come from. And I don't like reselling these because you never know when the grindstone has a crack in it from being thrown in a box. And the last thing you want is for someone to buy it off you or even take it out of the, for free or out of a dollar box. And you don't want to hear that they put it in their drill at home and the thing flew apart and caused them injuries. So I actually suspect that is cracked actually. So I'll just break the grindstone part off and the rest of it can go in with the heavy steel. More old electrical tape. Lots of very, very rusty sockets in the bottom. A few more punches. That's not a bad punch. We have an old Lockwood padlock. Well, I do sell those ones. Whether I've got a key for it or not, people do collect the old Lockwood padlocks. Probably not worth a great deal. And the rest of it's pretty well just, there's an old chainsaw file. It's pretty well just scrap. A couple of brass fittings so we can add to our brass pile. Triangle file. Another punch. That one's had it. That's only scrap. Yep, that's about it. Just some sockets and a few other spanners in the bottom of the tub. Alright, I'll sort it all out and I'll show you what value I've found. Not a great deal this time, I don't think. Now we'll get to that jewellery in a minute, but let's have a look at what we've sorted and cleaned. How good did these spanners come up? All I did was give them a buff on the wire wheel. I think good quality spanners. I mean, these aren't the best. They're Taiwanese made, but they are chrome vanadium. They're Kingcraft. I think they'll probably date to the 80s. Obviously, the finish on them was good enough that a lot of the rust just buffed off. And sometimes the good quality spanners mixed with poor quality spanners get rust staining on them because the poor quality spanners and other things rust. And it doesn't really get under these. So they've cleaned up very well. I'm going to sell all these ones. This one actually buffed up pretty well considering it's an English snail brand made in England. So I think we'll get 5 for that. I thought I'd put 20 on this set. So let's quickly scan around the table. I'm keeping that stuff and those few electrical bits. The scope soldering iron stuff, some of it suits the super scope or the larger one, and this is the mini scope, and some of it suits that. You can see there's different sized carbon elements. There's different sized tips. Now I found some of these copper tips. You still buy them new on eBay, and they're let's get a focus. They're $9.99 plus $6 postage, and the seller I found had sold 60 of them. So they're obviously consumable. They do wear out, but they're pretty expensive. So I'm going to just value this group at $30, which I think is super cheap. If anyone's got a couple of these scope soldering irons, really good value here for parts. They're all new, unused. So rather than try and market them individually, I think I'll just put $30 on the lot, be done with it. Someone will get a bargain. I'll do pretty well out of it. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do with all that. Now, I could sort them into the larger ones and the smaller ones, but I think I'd just rather put them out in one lot. I cleaned up the plugs, the Bakelite plugs and the switch. All I did was just use some Windex, actually. I think glass cleaner. They cleaned up fine. They were mostly just dusty. The Hella flasher unit, actually they sell very, very well, and I even saw a second-hand one selling. I'm just going to put $10 on that. I think it's a bargain. I think it suits an English car, and it was written on the instructions here in the box, and it says, new in February 1978, not used. It suits an Austin 1800, but I did look this number up, and it does suit quite a few other English cars. So $10, that should sell very quickly. We didn't get a lot of scrap. I didn't bother weighing it up, but you know, there's a few little bits for our scrap bins. We had around about 20 items to go in our $1 box, so I've allowed just $10 for that, but I'm sure we'll get rid of them all eventually. The Lockwood padlock, I'm just going to have a look through a jar full of Lockwood keys I've got at the shop. Sometimes you can get lucky. If I find a key for it, it's an easy $10, but I didn't really write down anything for it as it is. I'm keeping those bits and pieces. I even cleaned up the former gasket bottle. And the little tap and everything. Yep, so I'll keep that for now. And I cleaned up the Sid chrome spanner. I will hang on to that. It's a nice Australian made one, and I'm kind of collecting those to get a good couple of tool sets out of the Sid chrome stuff. Scrap metal, I didn't worry about trying to clean up the piston ring compressor. You can buy them new for about $20, and that one's very rusty. So this is all scrap metal. The entire lot of scrap metal added up to probably about $1, so really not much to write down there. So that brings us to the notepad. And believe it or not, out of a box of, well, it was fairly uninteresting in the end. I thought it could have been better. We still tallied up to $100. And we still haven't got to the jewellery. So looking good. Let's see if there's anything good in that little box of jewellery. Okay, let's check out this jewellery, see if we have any treasures here. Tip it out on the towel. Now, I'm not expecting anything good. And in fact, I'm expecting it all to be broken for a start. Given that it was in the workshop, I presume it was there to be fixed. Is it a bracelet or a necklace? It's in bits. I think it was a necklace. So we'll just sort it out to see what we've got here. I'm thinking it's going to be fairly junky stuff. That's well and truly broken up. So that's all the same. That looks to be the same again. Certainly been through the wars, that one. And we have the little bits that were the chain links from Flo's watch. We'll put them aside for the moment. And then we had some silver bits. These look like the broken parts of one of those. And it's probably going to be a cheap sort of die cast and just been gold plated or brass plated. So there's lots of bits of those. Maybe it went under the lawnmower. So I don't imagine we can have any value at all there. All right, what's this? A big link of something? A chain link. We have a small necklace, I guess. Another small section of chain, really just bits and pieces. Very fine chain there. So the first thing I'm going to do when I'm sorting jewellery is just establish what's magnetic. So I've got a neodymium magnet here from a hard drive. It's the best way to tell what's junk and what isn't. So clearly that's not silver, and I'm fairly sure those little beads will be either plastic or just glass, but that's clearly not a precious metal. So that's how I sort the stuff for a start. That's a little piece of ferrous, so is that. So it picks up all the little bits. It's interesting. I think that's a piece of this. So there's, by that reckoning, this is going to be magnetic. Yes. So that's just all a big tangled piece of junk. And it's too broken up to try and fix. We do sell some cheaper jewellery through the shop that may indeed be magnetic, but you don't get very much money for it. But we're not going to be able to sell anything that's broken like that. Still got a bit hanging off the magnet here. These bits are mostly magnetic as well. Now that's a link from something that wasn't magnetic. So what have we got left? Now that piece is not super strongly, could be stainless steel, but it's certainly not precious metal. All right, any other magnetic bits here? There's another piece of that. What about this link? No, that's very light. I would imagine that's aluminium. It's extremely light. Might even be plastic. Does it bend? No, it does bend. I'd say that's aluminium for sure. You can tell by the weight of it. So we don't have anything much here, do we? It's a bit hard. Let's put this back in, perhaps the clear part of this container. At least we can see what we've got then. So a joining link, a little bit of chain, another joiner of some sort, and just little bits and pieces here. Broken pieces of chain, a little clip, and that's extremely light as well. I reckon that would be aluminium for sure. So those two, and that's all we've got. Nothing else left on the towel here. So, oh, there's a little link there. Is that magnetic? No. So that's all our non-magnetic stuff. So what am I going to do with this stuff? Well, I do have a jar at the shop where we just put junk jewellery in, and I'm going to add this to it. It's of no real value, certainly no value as jewellery, although people do, every time we get a jar full and put it in the shop for $5, people buy it. Now, a lot of people make their own jewellery. They may use bits of the chain. They're into craft work or something like that. So it does sell. It's better than putting it in the bin. So all these pieces are going in our junk jewellery jar at the shop. Okay, I've just got my visor out so I can have a good look. I also use a magnifying glass, and I have got a loop at the shop, just a little eyepiece. What I want to do is just make sure, I'm pretty sure that's aluminium, just make sure that maybe this little clasp isn't sterling silver. Sometimes they are, and they marked 925, but it doesn't look silver. Just having a quick look to see if there's any marks on it. It's most likely just that even could be an aluminium as well, or it could be just a plated brass. So there's nothing else really to check. What's this little bit? That's likely to be just a plated brass piece as well. Yes, I think it is. I can see yellow on it. So no silver, no gold, nothing even complete that we could sell. These two pieces here we'll probably just put in our junk jewellery jar as well. The rest of it can just go in our little scrap metal bin in the shop here, in the workshop here. All right, the only thing to check now is these watch link pieces. We can see if they're magnetic, and oh no, that's the staple. So we'll cut them open. They've been taped up for a long time. Sticky tape's quite brittle. Now they look to be gold in colour. Can I get into this easily enough without flinging them around the workshop? They've got dry glue on them from the sticky tape. Alright, I think they're a bit corroded, although it's a bit hard to tell because of the sticky tape residue. I suspect they're gold plated. They've certainly got a rose gold sort of look to them. Rose gold being 9 carat, and the rose is a result of the copper alloy. Gives it a coppery colour. Alright, so that's all we've got. Now, I'm pretty sure they're going to be gold plated. They're not going to, you don't normally find actual watch band links 9 carat gold. You can have a 9 carat watch, and usually the matching band is just plated to look the same. And you would see if they were individually, if they were real gold or 9 carat gold, they'd probably have individual hallmarks on each link. So they'll be gold plated. I'm going to save them because it's a much better gold plating than you find on any electronic pins. All you scrappers that scrap out electronics and save all your gold pins and your gold fingerboards, this gold plating is many, many times thicker than anything you'll find in electronics. So it's well worth saving. One day, whether I get into precious metal recovery and try and recover the gold chemically, unlikely. I've probably got too many projects in my life to ever get into that, but I could certainly sell a jar full of this for gold recovery and someone would certainly buy it. So they're the only pieces I'm going to save. The rest of this we've already dealt with, so we've got no value to add to our notepad from this little thing of jewellery, but you never know, because there's been plenty of times that we have found gold rings and genuine gold jewellery, 18 carat, sometimes 9 carat, quite often, in sheds in little tins. So no luck this time, but still, we've processed it all. We've got something to add to a jar to keep for future, either refining or to sell. Okay, before we go with the jewellery, this little bit of chain that looked black, I just wiped my fingers over it fairly firmly, and it actually polished the chain links back to silver. Given that it's black, that would indicate that it's been tarnished, and there's a fair chance that that is a sterling silver little piece of chain. It's not going to weigh a lot to make any sort of dollars worth writing down, but I'm pretty confident that is silver. It was totally non-magnetic, and it definitely polished that black tarnish off very easily when I wiped my fingers across it. So I think that's worth putting in a this is possible silver jar, and one day we may melt it down or refine it or sell it as possible sterling silver. But it takes up no space to save that sort of stuff, and it could add up to a bit of value later on. And that finishes episode 60 of the Emergency Storage Shed Clean Out series. I usually at this stage hold my notepad and tell you what we're up to for the total, but Christine just bought me out some cake and a coffee. Gee, that girl looks after me. So I'm going to indulge here. Our total is getting very close to 10 grand. So look out for me in the next episode. We'll catch you then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.